This is worksheet 21.1, and we're going to start by looking at questions 4 through 7. We're looking at graphs of exponential equations that are of this form. So let's look at the questions. What happens when b is a whole number bigger than 1? So this number right here, let's look at an example of a graph where b is a whole number bigger than 1. So for example, let's look at graph D. We're going to graph 4 to the x. So in order to graph that, I'm just going to make a quick xy table and plot some points. So when x equals 0, 4 to the 0 is 1. So we'll plot the point 0, 1. When x equals 2, or we'll do x equals 1. We have 4 to the 1, which is 4. When x equals 2, we get 4 squared, which is 16. So if I just plot a few points here, we have 1, 4, 2, 16, which will be way off the graph up here. So we have this graph that is increasing as x increases. And if you want, you can plug in a couple other points. If x equals negative 1, we have 4 to the negative 1, which is 1/4. So you're going to be down here, and so on. So what happens to the graph when you have a whole number bigger than 1? You have a graph that is increasing as x increases. On number 5, what happens when b is a fraction less than 1? So for example, let's look at graph C. We have a fraction here that's less than 1. And again, I'm just going to make an xy table. When x is 0, 1/2 to the 0 is 1. When x is 1, 1/2 to the first power is 1/2. When x is 2, we have 1/2 squared, which is 1/4. So let's plot those and see where this graph is going. I'm also going to see what happens when x is negative 1. If you do 1/2 to the negative 1, then we flip this, so that's 2. So negative 1, 2. So this graph looks something like this. So when you have b equal to a fraction less than 1, the graph is decreasing. Okay, let's look at these other two questions. When the graph is an equation where b is equal to 1, let's look at the graph here, graph of G, where b is equal to 1. When x is 0, 1 to the 0 is 1. When x is 1, 1 to the first power is 1. When x is 2, 1 squared is 1, and so on. Anything that's in this exponent is going to give you a y value of 1. So if y is always equal to 1, then you just have a horizontal line for your graph. So here we have a horizontal line. The equation of that line is y equals 1. Lastly, when b is a negative number, so let's look at, for example, graph B, negative 2 to the x. Let's look at a few x values. When x is negative 2 to the negative 2, that would be 1 over negative 2 squared, which is 4. If you do negative 2 to the negative 1, that's 1 over negative 2 to the first power, which is negative 1/2. If you plug a 0 in, you're just going to get 1. If you plug 1 in, negative 2 to the first power is just negative 2. If you plug a 2 in, negative 2 squared is 4. So let's plot this and see what that looks like. Negative 2, 1/4, negative 1, negative 1/2, 0, 1, 1, negative 2, and 2, 4. So notice here that this graph kind of goes positive than negative, because of the nature of this exponent. So here, in an exponential equation, b can't be negative. b would have to be a positive whole number bigger than 1, a fraction less than 1, or If it was equal to 1, then you don't have an exponential, you just have a straight line.